Started. My name's Tim Cerny. I'm the CEO here at SafetyNet. Welcome to one of our Copilot Readiness seminars or virtual webinars. It's probably the better term. With me today is one of our network engineers, Brendan Tinker, who is one of our subject matter experts in deploying one of the projects that help our clients and companies get prepared and ready to utilize Copilot. So let me just get this out of the way. Most of you are familiar with us here at SafetyNet, but we are an IT managed service provider in Traverse City, Michigan, and in Farmington Hills, Michigan. We serve northern and southeast Michigan companies and really target clients between 220 and 200 type computers. So if you know anybody that would like to utilize our services or needs a good new IT company, please let us know. But that's not why we're here today. We're here to educate you and to better understand how to what Copilot can do for you and how to utilize it. Specifically, our goal here is to provide you insight into the complexity of the preparation involved in Copilot from a security perspective and from a data integrity perspective. So those two things, understanding the security components of Copilot and understanding specifically how to get the best data when utilizing Copilot. And so again, Brendan, welcome, and thanks for joining us today. Let me start by sharing this with everybody and saying, if you have questions, you'll see at the top of the screen, there's a Q&A button. It's a great and simple, easy way for you to ask a question. I think we have all of the mics turned off and video turned off, but plug your question in there and we'll do our best to share that with everybody and get as close of an answer as we can for you. So Brendan, related to security and related to data integrity with Copilot, what do we need to do to ensure that sensitive data isn't shared with people that shouldn't see it when utilizing Copilot? Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what that looks like and what we need to do to make sure it doesn't happen.
Right. I think that's a good place to start with this. And probably about 75% of this project deals with making sure your data is protected. And it's sort of the goal of all this is to protect against oversharing, which means, kind of like you said it, ensuring that users are not accessing data that they shouldn't have access to. How does this happen? It usually, over time, things drift. Security groups get created, permissions get switched for one reason or another. Over the course of months, years, you realize that you have a pretty sprawling landscape of different security policies and groups. And 9 times out of 10, it happens that people have access to things that they shouldn't. Relating to Copilot, in a normal scenario, no one's going to even notice a lot of times. They wouldn't even know how to access the data if they knew it was there, if they knew they had access. They don't know that it's even an option, so it usually doesn't create an issue. But when you put that behind a powerful AI supercomputer like Copilot, it's going to find those flaws pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So the whole goal of this is basically to prevent those situations from happening. We do this in this project through kind of 3 main tools or policies. The first one being a deep dive into the file permission structure. And we have some pretty powerful tools that we use to analyze this. If you were to just go through this on your own with a fine-tooth comb, you'd find it would take days, if not weeks. So, and we have a lot of expertise behind it too, using some of these tools to speed up that process. But it is still pretty lengthy, and we'll do a pretty deep dive of an audit into your file permissions, who has access to what, and then we'll work with you to figure out who is supposed to have access to what files, and we'll make the changes as they're appropriate.
Brendan, after that, if I could interrupt, one of the things that I think about, and I've shared this in some of our previous Copilot webinars and even some of our in-person seminars, but I think of, like, an innocent new employee asking a question about the CEO of Safety Net. Tell me a little bit more about Tim Cerny, and if our permissions, as you're talking about, these file permissions aren't set appropriately, it's this innocent question that this person asks could turn
Exactly.
into something and deliver something that isn't what they're looking for. It could be financial, like payroll information, could be HR information,
Yep.
types of things that should be not allowed for them to see. But Copilot, if the file permissions aren't set correctly, could deliver that unintentionally to that person.
Exactly. Copilot just wants to help. It's going to pull all of the data that it can find that could possibly relate to your question. Now, built into this, Copilot won't search data that you don't have access to. But that's where you get into the
Right.
situation where people have access to things we don't even know about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
It's like there's a question. This is strictly going to be OneDrive and SharePoint. Copilot wouldn't have access to on-premises storage unless there's some kind of integration involved, but mostly this will be OneDrive and SharePoint permissions. There shouldn't be too much of a concern for Copilot searching through a file server.
That was Caitlin
Yeah,
Johnson's question, and wondering if the file permissions review over OneDrive or SharePoint. So thanks for asking
right.
that.
Right. Beyond the file permissions, there's some security policies that Microsoft has available. Those are sensitivity labeling and data loss prevention policies. I won't go in too depth of these because these are both pretty complicated and pretty in-depth policies or security tools. To make it brief, sensitivity labeling lets you apply labels to documents, and then those labels will apply security tools. It will apply, you could have it apply watermarks automatically saying this is confidential, do not share. And we can add encryption there as well. And this also kind of helps lock down those really sensitive pieces of information that should not be shared, even internally under any circumstances. Only 3 people should be viewing these. We can use those sensitivity labels to create another barrier to protect against the oversharing. And the data loss prevention policies, this is sort of in more of a data in transit, we call it. It's data that's being shared. So this will monitor Teams messages, emails, even some SharePoint files that are being shared. And it will look for the signatures or the templates of some sensitive information. So that could be financial information, social security numbers, any personally identifiable information, could be HIPAA data as well. And it will take action when it sees some of those data types being shared internally and externally. So it will further protect against the oversharing. You can have a pop-up say, hey, are you sure you want to share this? This is potentially sensitive data. You could block it outright. You could apply automatic encryption. So there's a lot you can do with those policies as well.
I think that's great, Brendan. Thank you for that. And tell me, one of the other things that's important about this, the project associated with getting ready to utilize Copilot, is related to data integrity.
Mm-hmm.
We've just you talked a lot about the security and making sure that the right files don't get coughed up in your query and shared the wrong people. But talk to me about just getting good data and good information from Copilot and what you can do to help improve that.
Right. Yeah. You want Copilot to be as efficient as possible and to not spit on any data that's going to be irrelevant. And you can find at the start, you're going to probably get a lot of that unless we do some sort of data hygiene cleanup. Now we will search the environment for what we call ROT data, R-O-T, stands for redundant, outdated, or trivial data. This could be old archival information, like I said, redundant information. That's going to slow down Copilot as well if it's having to search through multiple versions of the same kind of information. Outdated, if you don't have your old archival information sectioned off and Copilot is searching it, it's not going to know that this data isn't good anymore. So you're potentially going to get a lot of old information that's not going to be helpful and can even be counterintuitive or counterproductive, because you're going to have to now sort through its responses for, okay, is this the current information? Is this the old information? So we want to clean up all of that data. And on top of that, we also want to create a logical data organization structure. Now, usually this is okay, but we can find sometimes, and again, this happens over a long period of time, folders get created, subfolders get created by, a variety of people who share different methodologies for their organization, and stuff starts to sprawl and things become really unorganized. And that's also going to slow down. It's not only going to slow down Copilot, that'll slow down regular people trying to search through information. This is actually a kind of a two-prong, two benefit portion of this project, is to clean up some of that. Also, we want to make sure things are named consistently. Copilot is going to use a lot of context for trying to give you the correct information, the best information for your query. And if things are not named consistently or have a clear and concise name, it's going to have a problem, and there's going to be some slowdown. You're going to get some inappropriate information for your actual question. So we want to develop a good naming scheme and an organizational structure that'll benefit not only your users, but Copilot as well.
Yeah, that's great. The one of the things that is consistently come up in regards to what Copilot can go do and grab, maybe you can provide some detail on this, is does it have the ability to grab templates or logos or specific content that people are developing PowerPoints, they want it to kind of have the company look and feel, or they're developing a Word doc and they want it to have the company template backdrop. Does it have that capability, and how does that work?
Yeah, so far we've been talking about sort of the information gathering side of it, but now we're getting into the generative kind of use cases for Copilot, and those can be really great. And what we'll do in this project is set up what's called an organizational asset library. It's a SharePoint site that gets created and configured specifically for this purpose, and we designate it as the asset library. We can tell Copilot, when you're looking for images or logos, office templates, look here. And we fill it with all kinds of things, any commonly used graphics, of course, your logos. If you have brochures that constantly look the same, you have a consistent style, we put those in there. We give it as much as we can, and then when you're starting to generate content, whether it be a pamphlet, a document, PowerPoint, whatever it is, Copilot will know, if I search here, I'm going to find the correct template or the correct logo, and it'll use that for all of your content creation. It's a great benefit of Copilot.
Yeah. And then what about the expectations from the customer or the client? What role will they play in this process? When you talk about file permissions in particular, I can't imagine a third party coming in to an organization and just setting up a file structure the way that they want to. So what, like, you like organizing a file cabinet in your home or your closet a certain way. Like, what role does the client play in this project?
Exactly. Yeah, the client is going to be the expert on their own data. Now, we don't know exactly what they want or where they want it or who should have access to it. So there's going to be a lot of interaction. There's going to be a lot of planning involved in making sure stuff is the place it should be. There's some industry standard sort of best practice that we can apply, but there's a lot of variation, and we can set this up exactly like it's going to be best for whoever's actually doing this. I don't think two deployments or two schemes are going to work for the same company. There's going to be a lot of variation in there with each specific client, but there's going to be some standards that we can apply, and we'll certainly in terms of the file permission, we're going to do a huge audit and we're going to pull everything we can. And then we're going to maybe tweak some things and submit it for approval. Do you like this? What do you want to change? Same thing for the naming scheme, the structure. We want to just consolidate and make things as simple as possible. There's also a lot of planning for some of the sensitivity labels and the policies.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of data are you using? How sensitive is some of this for your business? So there's a lot of planning involved, and there's also training. We want to make sure that you are prepared for Copilot as it gets enabled. You're able to use all of the tools involved. So there's a lot of interaction here.
I would one of the things that would kind of would be a question that I would ask and be a little fearful of. I'll say that is when you talk about your asset, library and file naming structure, are you going to be looking for companies to change the names of all of their files and folders to meet a certain Copilot format? What's the expectation there?
Yeah, so there may need to be a little bit of change if folders are named, in a confusing way. I've seen a lot of stuff that's just named after a date, doesn't actually give very much information. But most of the stuff is probably going to be okay. We just need to maybe reorganize it slightly. And we, like I mentioned before, we have some powerful tools that we can use to really get a good picture of everything, where it is, what it's doing, where it's being stored, how often it gets accessed, so we can pull as much information as possible. So when the changes do need to be made, it's going to be hopefully pretty minimal. But even if it is extensive, we're going to be helping a lot. We can make a lot of the changes ourselves. So there's definitely going to be some back and forth, but we'd like to make things as painless as possible, like we say.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'll just remind those that have joined us, to if you have an additional question for Brendan, to drop that in the Q&A. We're coming up to about 20 minutes. We've scheduled this for 30. We certainly can end sooner if there aren't a ton of questions, but as we're kind of wrapping up, I'd encourage you to kind of get those questions in now. You've given Brendan, you kind of have given us really good information about the project. Maybe you could walk us through the steps of what that project looks like.
Yeah.
At a high level, not necessarily all of the detail, but kind of what would that look like? Time frame, how much time's involved from involvement of the client. Maybe you could just walk us through those details.
Yeah, so kind of the first stage of this project is going to be preparation of the environment and the data. So that's, as far as the environment goes, we're going to take care of all of the licensing. There's a lot of security policies and audit logging policies that need to get created, stuff that's not necessarily going to be noticed right away, but there is quite a bit to prepare for. And then we're going to prepare the data. So that's the file permission cleanup, the data hygiene cleanup, creating that organizational asset library. There's a lot of prep work involved, and that can take quite a bit of time. And as we make some of these changes, we actually do this a little bit slowly on purpose when we're making big file permission changes, because we don't want to cause any issues as we're doing it. We usually do a portion at a time and slowly roll it out as however works best for the client, really. After that, we start to plan out some of those advanced security policies. That's the sensitivity labeling,
okay,
and the data loss prevention. Each of those has its own sort of life cycle of an analysis of what's necessary, what's going to lend itself best for the client's business process. We're going to create those policies and those labels, and then we're going to do a little bit of testing to make sure they're reacting like we want them to, and then we can implement them. So each of those is going to be sort of a slow roll process as well. After that, everything is in place now. The security is set, the permissions are good. Then we'll enable the Copilot for a pilot group. That'll be picked out pretty early on in the process. We call this the COE team, the Center of Excellence. This is the group of people they're going to be the go-to. They know how to use Copilot. They know how to use the security tools that we've created. Now, this doesn't replace the support team. If there are issues with technical issues with Copilot, we can certainly assist. But this is, they know the odds and ends of getting the most out of Copilot. They've had more time with it than everyone else. They're going to be the pilot group here. So we'll do some training with the pilot group, and then we'll turn it on and let them off and to mess around with Copilot, see what works, see what doesn't. This also does help us find any issues before Copilot is turned on for the rest of the company. If there, some of the policies aren't working exactly like we want them to, maybe there's some file permission issues that are lingering still that weren't caught. This is a great place to find some of those. Once we're happy with everything this team has had some time to really sink their teeth into Copilot, and we turn it on for everyone. And then we have another waiting period to make sure there are no issues. And that's pretty much it.
That's great. That's a good overview. Really good. Thank you. Bill Seguin had a question that I think we should bring up. He's asking, can SafetyNet perform a file permission review for a company that's not currently a SafetyNet client?
We can certainly do a file permission review for anyone. Our tools are agnostic to whether they're a client or not. They just hook into 365 and they spit out all the results and we interpret them. We also, as long as we have access to the environment, yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
Certainly. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking that, Bill. Let's see, it looks like there might be another. How long does, Caitlin's asking, how long does it take to implement all of the stages prior to the pilot group?
Yeah, so this is, it depends on the extent of some of the issues that we find. Mostly the file permissions, those can take quite a bit of time. The rest of it, a matter of weeks, we can really get everything spun up and ready and tested. But like I said, some of those, if there's a lot to fix with the data hygiene aspect or the file permission aspect, it's going to take a little bit more time. But usually beyond that, everything else is a few weeks.
That's great. All right, last opportunity here for some questions before we break. Okay, we might have a new one here. How many clients have we rolled this out to?
I've done 3 of these already myself. Each of them have gone pretty well, including our own internal one, actually. Each of the stages went about exactly as we expected, rolling out all of the policies and the sensitivity labels. Worked with a pilot team. Everything seems to be working about as well as we can expect, actually.
Yeah, it's really new for all of us. 3 certainly isn't a ton of experience, but considering how new Copilot is and how we're all learning about it, it's we're well underway. And so if you do have some interest in those services from us, please follow up. I'd be happy to, if you're a current client, just lean on your account manager. If you're not currently with us under a managed service contract, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to get that going for you. Caitlin's asking another question here. Can you confirm that it looks at Teams channel data?
As far as confirmation, at least from our side of things, the clients that do use it for Teams a lot. That's actually one of the chief uses. Summarizing long meetings with its can't think of the term, the
transcript
meeting, the transcript. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, summarizes transcripts and will create a great summary of the meeting. If you're talking about the security policies, those certainly look at all of the Teams data that are going through as well. So Teams, in our experience at least, Teams is one of the main points of use for Copilot.
Yeah. I think there had been some questions in previous Copilot webinars related to Teams and the idea of doing transcripts with with an executive team. Maybe there's a conversation that it takes place during the meeting related to an underperforming employee, for example, and it's transcribing that conversation. The question is if that's the case, how do you protect that transcript from getting into individuals' hands that shouldn't have access to that?
So for your question, Tim, yeah, that's why we do a lot of that preparation in advance. Those file permissions, the sensitivity labeling specifically could be a great use for this. You have that transcript, now you give it the label highly confidential, and that is only going to be viewable by whoever's listed on the label, a handful of people, just HR, whatever it is.
Yep. And Caitlin, your question, does it search within Teams, for example, Teams chat, meetings, notes, team channels, and posts? The answer is yes. We've tackled that question in some previous webinars that we've held. And Jenny put up here on the screen where you can find some of those videos and webinars. So feel free to copy those down, go to our website. You'll see those. Put it on 2.5 times speed and kind of find your way to the part that you kind of want to get more information on. But yes, it's a pretty powerful tool within Teams in getting that information. So, and we also, most of these webinars too have been about 30 minutes. There is one in our library that's about an hour and a half, and that webinar in particular goes through at a high level, a really cool example of a company who's dealing with a bike part, and the bike part was recalled, and they utilized Copilot throughout the entire process of solving the problem about this recall. And it shows you how they utilized Outlook, Copilot in Outlook, Copilot in Word, Copilot in Whiteboard, Copilot in PowerPoint, and to solve all of these challenges. It's really something else. To give you, if you haven't seen really the power of Copilot in use, it's quite a good seminar put on by Greg Heron, one of our account executives here. So I would, on that note, I think as we kind of are coming to the end, I'll just thank Brendan. Thank you very much for your time and expertise. Thanks for those that have joined us today. And you guys have probably seen this throughout all of our social media and advertising over the last kind of month and a half. We are in the middle of a referral challenge, and that Polaris Razor side by side could be yours. If you happen to know a company that would is interested in a new IT managed service provider, all we're looking for is an introduction to a point of contact, and we'd be your name, if we can sign them on as a new client before October 15th, you could be entered to win this. And honestly, I think you might be one of 2 to 3 people that would be have your name in the hat if you were to do that. So great odds and a great opportunity for you and for us. So on that note, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and feel free to reach out if you need any more information on how we can help you get ready for Copilot. All right, take care.